Hello everyone, welcome to Down and Dirty. I'm Larry, and today we're going to be replacing the radiator in our 2005 LJ. Yeah, I finally gave up, sprung a leak, so it's time to replace it, and I opted to go with a factory OEM radiator. Seems to be the best option. Haven't heard good luck with some of these aftermarket ones. Also, the all aluminum ones seem to be give and take. So, talked to someone that does this regularly, and he suggested factory OEM is the way to go. Alright, like, subscribe, and share. Let's get started. So here's the new radiator. Laid it out on the floor here to make it easier to look at, but has a petcock on the bottom for draining it. Right here. It's one of the first things we want to do is get the coolant drained out of it. Got your transmission connections. They're the quick connect wire locks. And they also have a little plastic retainer on the line that snaps over the top of this so that wire lock can't pop out. So we're going to get the antifreeze drained through the petcock first and start unbolting everything, getting the radiator ready to move. Going to get the fan shroud out of the way. And I'm going to get everything ready. And the last thing I'm going to do is pop the transmission lines so we can just pull the radiator out, put a new one in, and pop the transmission lines back on. It's Chrysler tag, part number. Okay, by looking at the new one, makes it pretty straightforward what you have to do. You have these bolts all the way down each side that have to be removed. Have this fan shroud, needs to be removed from the radiator. Of course, upper hose. Reservoir tank here, just pops right out of there, get that out. And then of course, we have all these bolts down the driver's side. Okay, so we get this tank taken out. This little bump here on the back of the tank protrudes into a hole on this, so you need to kind of pry that apart and lift it up. And there went my cap. Shot off somewhere. So it just lifts right out. Right here's the little part that sticks out that I was talking about. Just got to get that pried apart and it'll pop right out. It just slides right out. And of course, remove your hose from here first. Now we'll get the fan shroud out of the way. We've got 4 bolts here. 11 millimeter fits them. Maybe a standard also. Give me one of them little rechargeable ratchets. That's what I need for this kind of stuff. Go much easier, faster. I gotta get the other side. Over here on the faster side, I have another one right here and another one down below that I really can't show. Got the AC condenser connection. In the way of that one, wouldn't be able to see it from camera, but anyway, just follow down to the bottom and find another one of these. It's 2 on each side. Alright, so that's all the shroud bolts. So I'm just looking here, I don't see any reason we're going to take this fan off. I have plenty of clearance. So I think I'm probably going to leave the fan on, just have the shroud pulled back like we've got it, and we'll get the radiator all disconnected. Hoses next, and get the bolts out, all but the top 2, and then I'm going to remove the transmission lines and swap the radiators out. Okay, one thing I just found on that fan shroud, the bottom didn't want to move out of the way, so I went and looked underneath, and there's a little one of those barbed kind of clips for one of the transmission lines pushed into the bottom of the fan shroud. I just popped it out real quick so I could get the shroud out evenly. Now we have it back even farther than what it was. All looking good, so we're going to start getting hoses off. Now, with this type of a squeeze clamp, you can do it with pliers. I've done it before. Kind of a pain, especially if it's in an awkward spot. It's hard to get to. Some places you can't even get pliers into them. So this is a nifty little thing to buy here. It's cable driven. See how we have right here, this actually squeezes your clamp together by cable. Then this has a ratcheting lock, so it holds it. So just makes it much easier and safer to do these hose clamps. So simply just clip it on there and squeeze it. And it locks. So it holds the clamp for you. So you're not trying to fight it with pliers or whatever. So it's just the safest way to go. And then you just squeeze it, release your lock, and voila, comes right back off the hose clamp. Simple way to do it. Pull our hose off. Now I'm going to get underneath and do the same with the lower radiator hose. And then we'll proceed to removing the bolts holding the radiator in. We'll start removing radiator bolts. We have 3 of them. So I'm going to leave this top one for last, so I'm going to get this middle one first. There's 10mm ratchet wrench on here. We'll use our socket. Ratchet, either way. Whatever we have, whatever works best. My advantage, I always think with the sockets, is once you break the bolt loose, you can use your socket on the bolt to pull it the rest of the way out. Now we're over here on the passenger side. I'm going to show you here real quick, but I'm not doing the top bolt yet. But they have holes through this flange, so you can stick your socket right through. Get your bolts out. And now we're on transmission lines. You got this little plastic cover you need to pull back first. Pull that back out of the way. And then you got these little metal clips. I don't know if I'm holding the camera good enough for you to see this. It's kind of hard underneath the Jeep to do this, but you got these little metal clips right here. You just got to pop those out of that slot. I had to set the camera down to do this, get that little clip out of that slot. But once you pop that off, then these are called quick disconnect lines. You can just pull the line out. It's just an O-ring seal. Okay, now I have both my clips off. You can see them right there. That's what they look like. Have both those removed. Now we're going to pull the lines out. Okay, now everything's disconnected on our transmission. Lines are done. It's the last thing to get disconnected. We're going to get this radiator out of here. Breather hose there for, I believe, your differential. Don't lose that. Last one here on the passenger side. That's the last bolt. Dang hose, pain in my butt. Lift it out. Okay, radiator's all out. We'll take a peek in there, see if there's anything that needs cleaned up before we go sticking the new one back in. Okay, everything looks good. We're going to put the new radiator in. Okay, we're going to drop the new radiator in here. Just be real careful of the fins on a radiator. Not to bump up against anything if possible. If you do have a real tight situation where you might, it's always good to put some cardboard in between. Hold on to the tank here. Get my bolt started down there. I'm gonna get the mid bolt started. Passenger side first. So we got that vent. It's a lot harder. So you put that flange in front, you can't hardly get your fingers in here. Get started. And also under the radiator, there's like a flap, like a rubber flap. It had gotten tucked up in behind. It's supposed to actually lay under the radiator, not in front of it, in front of their fins. And then I had my differential vent hose got caught behind it also when I set it into place. Just wanted to check, make sure nothing's in behind it, binding. Don't force it. If you force it and you twist the radiator, you have a chance of damaging it. It should just set in nice and flat on its own. And of course then we just reverse the whole process. Pull the bolts back in, put the hoses back up, finger tight everything first so you get them all in. Okay, everything's fitting up just fine. So I got the top two done first. I'm just going to go through and finish up this side, go back, finish up the other side, and put our lines back on. Now I am going to get the fan shroud up into place because it's laying on the hoses. Let's get it out of my way down there. We'll get started. These are like sheet metal type screw. It's not an actual bolt and it's not an actual thread. Gotta kind of force it in there to make it start threading itself. It's just a punched hole I have in there. It's not really threaded like a bolt hole. Yeah, finally got that one started. They're a little difficult. You got to push real hard on them. Get them to go in. All right, back underneath here. Here's a little trick that I do. See those yellow earplugs? Yeah, that's my transmission lines. I do the roll up earplugs and stuff them in there just to keep fluid from constantly dripping out. Then you just simply pull them out. Right here's where a transmission line goes. Like I said, I left the metal clip in there as it was from factory. So we're going to pop these earplugs out and just shove this line on there. I'll wipe it off here first. Make sure there's nothing on it. Get it contaminated, but let's pop our earplugs out. The fluid starts dripping right away. So there. I just popped it in. That was it. It just push locks in. So here's our other one. Earplug pulled out of there. If I get hold of it, he's slippery. See, fluid starts dripping out as soon as I pull the earplug out. So it would have been dripping the whole time you're changing the radiator. So you just take and shove it in there, and it just clips in. And that's it. It's an O-ring seal. So you got your little plastic cover right here. Just clip that on over there. Make sure it snaps into place. So with this side, it just clips on. Make sure that it snaps into place over that metal ring so your hose can't blow out under pressure. It's got all the shroud bolts tightened up. And of course I dropped one in the antifreeze, so I'd go fishing for it. Hose is put on the bottom, or the bottom hose put on, and the transmission lines put on. Get this top hose put on here again with our nifty little hose clamp tool. One's about maximum for it to fit. Right back up there exactly where it was. Push the little release button. Voila, all done. My reservoir tank, we get it rinsed out, and then we can get this filled up with coolant, and it'll be all done. All right, so this is what I bought. Preston Platinum. It says for all vehicles. It says you can mix it with anything. I don't know if I trust it. I'm still flushing my Jeep out anyway. I'm on the 3rd round of just running distilled water in it, letting it warm up, heat on full blast, make sure everything's circulating. It is getting a lot lighter in color. My concern was the coolant in it matched exactly color-wise to Dexcool, which I run in my Duramax. And they say that's not what you're supposed to run in this, and you shouldn't run that in these Jeeps, that you need to run the regular, I think it's HOAT, coolant. So I'm just flushing out as much as I can, and then I'm going to mix this up. So about concentrate, it's way cheaper buying concentrate than it is buying distilled, or the 50-50 mix. So you just mix it with distilled water. It's basically a half a gallon of each. And yeah, my funnel looks dirty, but I did wipe out the inside of it with alcohol. Cleaned it very thoroughly, made sure there was no oil or anything else left in it, so I wouldn't get any in my coolant. Okay, so I got the radiator all filled up with coolant now. One thing I didn't catch on video that I thought I did was you fill it up till the coolant gets towards the top, start it up, let it run, again with your heater on full, till your thermostat opens, and you'll actually see bubbles coming up. You want to get all the air out of the system. And the coolant level will start to drop, so you just add more until it you don't see any more air bubbles. And then the fluid will actually start to rise because it's heating and expanding, and at that point just get your cap on it and run it. And took it for a drive, and actually put a little bit in the tank first, took it for a drive, brought it back, let it cool off, and then open the cap. Even with it cooled off, you could hear it kind of suck like a vacuum, and it was a little low on coolant again, so I added a little more again, and then filled the tank to the normal level, put the cap back on, and been driving it ever since, and it's all been great. So that's it. Okay, that concludes this video of changing radiator in a 2005 LJ. Pretty simple task. My biggest thing was just flushing out the old antifreeze, getting everything out so I could put fresh in it. Other than that, it went great. Alright, like, subscribe, share. Take care. Thank you. Appreciate y'all.